Alright guys, so I have a Cannon Mag10 electric downrigger. It is just the Mag10. It, I believe, is 2006 and prior on this model. So one of the issues people have, I haven't had it yet, luckily, but the downrigger starts to slip, and like that can be a sign of is your clutch pad and washers going, and or the bearings and washers on the other side. So I looked online, couldn't really find a whole lot. I had a couple, there were some descriptions, but nothing that actually showed how to do this. So I'm going to make a video to show how to do this. So this is my downrigger. Yes, I drilled and put these eye bolts in here. What I do is I keep a safety lanyard clipped to that, to the gunnel on my boat, so that if something was to happen, I don't completely lose the downrigger over the side of the boat. So the parts that I got for this is you have a washer with a large hole that goes against the plate, and then you have your clutch pad which goes in between, and then you have another washer that has a rectangle-ish looking hole, and that will go, those sandwich the clutch pad to keep it from slipping. Something you probably should replace every few years. Another item is where you have your screw on the side here, your handle, where you can tighten it up or lower it for pressure for the drag. The bearings, and I'll show you this, the bearings rub on these washers because they sit in between them, and sometimes that you'll get grooves. If you look closely at this other one, I'm doing 3 of these, you'll see the rings that have worn into the washer. That can create a problem with the old ones. They'll start slipping on you, and you won't be able to retrieve your weight back very easily. It could go into a free fall mode. So I'm going to show you how we go about doing this, how to change these all out. Okay, I'm going to prop you up here so you can watch. First thing to do is lay this on its side and take out the 7 Phillips head screws. This cover will pop right off. I want to give a shout out to it's called fish307.com. So I got my parts from, and so I'm doing 3 downriggers, and you can see that the 6 sets of washers and the 3 different bearings, and then the 6 sets of the small washers came to $48.60. And again, it's fish307.com is where I got my parts. Received them in 2 days, very quick. I was happy about that. Okay, so once you have the cover off, this is your motor. There's 3 bolts that you have to take off. They're 10 millimeter bolts. So you've got one right there, and then up in the top you've got one there and one there. So we'll take those out. And again, that's 10 millimeter. So I just put a socket on a little extension for the drill, and it works just fine. This is my last one here, changing. Well, that never fails. Okay. And number 3. Okay. They use the factory, they use some kind of an adhesive behind this. So I just took a pair of needle nose, just find a way to kind of pry in there to lift up on it. You'll hear the rubber adhesive start to peel There, boom, motor's out. You can see that sprocket goes inside of there. And then you have your sprocket, and then here's your two washers with the clutch in between. That's where you're going to replace those. But first, you got to flip it over. Remember, Cannons are backwards thread, so turning to clockwise will actually loosen it. You want to take this off, and we will get back to this part in a minute, because this is where you may have to hold the sprocket with your fingers so it doesn't keep spinning. This is where the two small washers and the bearing go for when you cinch down for you to drag on the cable. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm just going to set these here. Okay, so then you can pull this out. Pull this straight out of the other side, nice and easy. You can see the orientation. So the washer with the rectangle style hole goes on last. There's your clutch pad. You can see this one's pretty smooth and hard. So that's going to basically be indicative of the thing starting to slip. This is the washer with the big square hole. And that one sits on the back of the sprocket that has the square on it. So I will take my new ones, and remember, you want the flat side of the washer, not the one that's rounded, but you want the flat side of the washer to be against the clutch plate. So I will stick that on there like that. I will slide my clutch plate on, and then this is the rectangular one, again flat side against the clutch pad. I will slide that back in. You can spin those until it locks in on the key. Okay, so that's in. Now over to here. This is what I was talking about earlier. See the rings that are worked into the washer? Same thing on that one. So I'll just take a little, just gotta pry that one out of there a little bit. It's just being held in a little bit by grease. Okay, so I will take my new one. Again, flat side is what you want against the bearings, so I will stick that on there. Got my bearing in my other washer, come back over here. Doesn't matter which way this bearing goes, it's the same on both sides. So I will put this washer on with the flat side out. Put my bearing on. I already set the other washer in here. I'm going to hold the sprocket on this side, put this on, and again, remember, it's backwards threads. Tighten that all the way down, it'll suck those things in nice and tight. Okay, so that is replacing the bearings and also replacing the clutch assembly on this side. So now we can put the motor back on. You'll feel a positive connection when this drops onto the sprocket, which is not on right now. So what I can do is I can turn the spool a little bit until I'm on the sprocket good, and you also can tell because you'll be down flat against the body of the downrigger. So now I'm just going to put these bolts back. You got to get them lined up. Yes, I'm working on my kitchen counter because it's late and my wife's asleep. Otherwise, I would not be allowed to do this in here. All right, so I dropped the one. Luckily, I've got my needle nose right here. I'm just basically putting these 3 bolts back in. As far as the torque setting, I would say there. It's down tight and flush. It's not going anywhere, so we're good. Now you can put the cover back on. Change out my bit. And I would leapfrog these screws like you do lug nuts on a car rim so that you get a good seat. Okay, and that is how you change out the bearings and the clutch on the Cannon Mag10 Downrigger. Remember, it is fish307.com is where I got the parts. You can probably get them anywhere, but they did me really good, and they had them here in 2 days. So I was pretty happy about that. Okay, hope this helps.